Welcome to our training session today to review our LabSim 5 interface. Appreciate your attendance and would like to introduce myself. I'm Stevie George. I work as a customer implementation specialist here at TestOut, and I've posted my contact information so that afterward, if you do have any questions or anything perhaps that I wasn't able to address today, that you're welcome to get in touch with me. So please jot down my number or email address, and you're welcome to get back with me at any point in time. And please use the questions box to ask questions anytime during this presentation. We want to make sure that we're getting questions answered for you that you're interested in, obviously. So first, let me say that not only is the LabSim homepage cleaner and easier to find exactly what you need, but moving forward, it provides us the scalability that's essential to be able to accommodate additions and enhancements that are requested from instructors. The top part, obviously, in here is showing the previous interface. The bottom part is showing our newer interface. So you can see the vast difference between those. So let's go out and explore that new interface. I want to pull this up to show the home screen here where we have My School tab, My Products tab, and the Certifications tab. I first want to go out actually into the My Products to show you the new features that we have out here. So in the course, basically the courses are set up the same, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here to the networking course. That's the one I'm going to preview today. So I can click either the title hot link or the thumbnail next to that in order to utilize the course. One thing I just want to explain briefly, we do have listed now the browser compatibility for each of our courses. As we're currently in transition between Silverlight and HTML5, some courses have already been fully converted over to HTML5, others have not, and so in order to hopefully avoid any confusion, we've listed what browsers are compatible for that respective product. So I'm going to click on the title of the course, and the courses are set up the same way that they've always been. Matter of fact, let me go up here right next to the home button. I'm going to click on the outline view. And I can see that we still have the chapters set up. Within the chapters, we have the different section topics. And then within the section topics, we have different activities. Now, there are two icons that have changed, not that the activities have, just the icons associated with those. The head and shoulders icon has been moved to a film strip icon. And then the icon representing the exams that was a paper with a question mark has been changed to a paper and pencil. So the biggest change in here really has come in the videos. We've made some enhancements there that I want to show to you. So initially you'll see that instead of just starting the video, I now have two options. And I can of course play the video or choose an interactive script. I'm going to go ahead and start with the play video because it really doesn't matter which one I pick initially. It's going to allow me to pick either one during the presentation here. So initially, I have all the same tools down here at the bottom that I've had before, but we've added 4 additional ones in. Volume control, pretty simple. We have that now in the videos. Before, you could only adjust the volume on the computer. Now you can do that within the video. This functionality here, the 1x, is a bar for identifying the playback speed. I think this is really going to be a great tool for the students because in the past we've heard from instructors saying that students are saying, well, the instructor talks way too slow. I sure wish I could speed up Rob Tracy. Or, no, there's points where he just talks too quickly. I'd like to slow him down. Well, now they have the ability to do that. This again is the playback speed, so if I take the slider bar above the 1, he's going to be speaking faster, and if I take the bar below the 1, he will be speaking slower. So this gives the students the ability to be able to adjust that even within the video that they're watching or set it at what their liking is to begin with, and then that setting will stay throughout the course. The 1x again is the default setting here. So the playback speed, a new feature. Interactive script is another new feature, and this is the other one that I really like. I think it's going to be helpful for both students and instructors alike. Here it's showing me, of course, where he's currently at in the text. The great thing about this is I can move to any point quickly. Let's say I want to jump down here to where he talks about cascading hubs. Well, I can click on a block of text there, and immediately it jumps to that point in the presentation. And of course, I can go forwards or backwards to any point that I want, click on any block of text, and it goes to that point. So it's a great option also for review. Besides, we've heard that there definitely are students who would prefer to read, maybe even over listening to what is being said. At the top, we have two little icons right here, one where they can copy the text, and another one where they can print the page out if they like. To exit the interactive script, I can simply click the X. To get out of that script, to go back to the video window only. And the last new feature that we have here is the full screen view, which comes in, of course, very handy when he's doing any writing or diagramming on a board. That's one request that we've had in the past that we've been able to implement into this new interface as well. I can click Escape or simply click down here in the right corner to minimize that again. And those are the new features that we have within the videos. Again, all the same features exist that we've had previously with these additional functions. Now, if I want to navigate sequentially through the course, I've already showed the outline up here. I'll do that one more time for those who joined us a little late. I can click on here to maneuver to, of course, any particular topic that I would like and to any chapter and section. But if I'm already in working on a particular item here, I can simply use my right arrow to move to the next activity, or of course the left arrow to go back. So sequentially, I'll just use the arrows to go from one activity to the next. Here on the fact sheet page, we still have those options to copy text to a soft copy or to print out a hard copy. Under the Actions drop-down here in the upper right is where students can still bookmark pages if they like for reference. They can, I've already have this bookmarked, or this page, excuse me, bookmarked here, and I can browse my bookmarks. I can see I have several pages bookmarked here, so I can go to any page that I have bookmarked quickly by just clicking on the bookmarked page, and then it directly takes me right to that respective page. So everything else in the course is basically status quo. The labs, no difference in the labs. They're completed the same way. And the same with the exams. No difference there. Now in the labs, there is one thing that I want to show upcoming. Many of you probably know if you're teaching classes already in networking, you probably know that we have a new course coming up. And I wanted to just show you one of the new features in the change location option. Before, we had the ability, of course, to go from one room to another. Well, we're expanding that option now. And I think this is so cool because now we can see building layouts here. If I want to go to building A, first floor, I can just click on that and it'll go right to that respective building and that particular floor. And then, of course, by clicking on anything here, I can go directly to that location. From here, I can go to, of course, floor 2 if I like, and I can always go back to another building. And these are just slides right now that I have to show you the different features here. But now they have the ability to go from building to building and floor to floor, which is going to be so cool. It's going to add a whole new dynamic level that we haven't had in the past. So just a little sneak peek there of our new networking course. I'm going to click back up on the outline view here to show that at the end we still, of course, have the practice exams. In this case, if you want to students want to prepare for the CompTIA Network Plus, or if they would like to prepare for the Network Pro, we have still the practice exams here that can be utilized the same way. Now, as far as the certifications, go back to the home page, and that was the third tab right here at the top. So if you're an instructor and maybe there was a certification you are planning on taking, you're still obviously going to have the ability to do that. You can, of course, scroll through the list, find the respective certification that you're looking for, and right next to that is a start exam, allowing you, of course, to take that test anytime. These, of course, are the skills-based certification exams that are going to test the individual on their skill level and their abilities, not just on their knowledge. Previously, if you've used these exams, I've heard feedback that instructors often like to use these pro exams as finals. Obviously, you can still do that, and it will show the classes that are associated with the respective certification, allowing you, of course, to go out and be able to schedule the exam. Of course, you can look at reports, download certificates for students. One thing that's not necessarily new, but I've heard that instructors haven't been aware of, is that students are able to actually download their own certificates as well. So not a new option, but a feature that is available for students. They can download their certificates. So if by chance instructors have printed those out and a week later the dog ate their certificate or something tragic happened to their certificate, then certainly it can be printed out again and the student can actually do that on their own. Now let's click back on the My School tab here. This basically is the home page where instructors will spend the majority of their time, and we've tried to put all the resources that you need easily right at your fingertips. The first thing, as far as creating classes, most of the instructors set up their own classes. This process is the same as what it's been. Here I can click Add. And the three pieces of information that I needed to do before to set up the class name, to have the assigned teacher. Now, if your name's already in the box, obviously you don't need to pick your name from the list. And then the last thing under the associated LabSim products, this was required before, just a slightly different layout here. I'll go out and click the product that I'm using for this class. And in this case, we've been doing networking, so I'm going to go ahead and click the Test Out Network Pro. And on this window, I'll now click Done. And of course, the student enrollment typically is still done by the students, so no need to worry about that. And of course, here I'll click Done. It'll save the change to my class. It'll, of course, also then update my home page, so that then that new class is reflected right on my home page. And of course, the classes are still listed alphabetically. And here I can see the class has been populated. I can also see that I don't have any students enrolled in it. The student count is right here. I'm going to take this class as an example here. I can see this class has 6 students. Well, I'm supposed to have more than 6. I have to be able to figure out, well, who's missing. In LabSim 4, you had to actually run a report, a class roster, to find out who was missing. Well, we've made this process much simpler. I can click on the class name, and immediately it's going to show me who's in the class. And I can see who those 6 students are, and of course then I can quickly identify who the missing student or students are. The other new feature that we've added here by popular request of instructors, they wanted to make sure they knew if the students had the correct product activated that correlated to the class. Well, now you can quickly identify. Here all the students do, of course, except for one. Now some people may say, well, how can there be a no here? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say students took our PC Pro class last semester, and now they're going to be in a networking class. They have a LabSim account set up, of course, which that account will allow them to be enrolled in any class, so the student can enroll in this class. However, that doesn't mean that he's activated the networking product yet, which in this case we can see that is true because there's a no by his name. So this will just help you quickly identify if anybody in the class isn't set up yet with their product for the respective class. And of course, this is based off of the product that you selected when you created that class initially. Now, if you're teaching in a classroom, I'm sure you've probably had students come to class where all of a sudden one day they can't remember their login, or maybe they forgot their password. Well, the logins, as you may know, are right next to their name here in the parentheses, so you can see exactly what their login is. Now, let's say this student here comes to class and he's the one that can't remember his password. Well, I can go ahead and click on his name. It'll pull up a new window where then I can click the Generate Temporary Password button. And now here is the password that's available for that particular student. The original password does remain on file, so in case you're in the process of creating a temporary one, at the same time the student thinks he remembers what the password is, it won't matter, because if it is the correct password, it will allow him to enter that, and then of course he won't need to use the temporary one. If he did use the temporary one, it's going to prompt him to change the password as soon as he gets logged in. So this password is only, of course, used one time. The other feature that I want to show here, this isn't necessarily new. Matter of fact, neither is the Generate Temporary Password, but we found that in some cases this information was a little bit buried and instructors didn't realize that we had it, including this feature here where you can check the box if the student has a learning impairment that requires them to have additional time on a timed exam, for instance. So if you were using our custom exams or any of our pro certification exams, which obviously those are timed tests, then this would automatically give this respective student double the amount of time without having to make special concessions basically when you go out to schedule the exam. So if you schedule the exam, for instance, for an hour for the class, this student would automatically have a 2-hour window in order to complete that test. Now, one thing to note that is an enhancement that is coming up here, we've definitely heard from instructors that, well, all students aren't required to just have a flat 2-hour time period. Some are allowed time and a half, some double time. The time varies, and so we are coming up with an enhancement to this feature that will allow you to select how much additional time that you would like for the students. So that is a new feature coming up. And by the way, for anybody who's just joined us or joined us maybe a little bit late, if you do have any questions about anything that I'm talking about here, or questions of something that you're not seeing that you would like to, for instance, feel free to type any questions in our questions box, and I'm happy to address those as I go through the presentation today. So again, setting up the class is the same, but to get to the students in the class or to see who's enrolled in the class, you simply click the class name. Now, if you've been using LabSim for a number of years, you probably know that your home page is loaded with different classes, especially if you haven't chosen to export any of that data out. Then it's going to fill up your page very quickly. Well, probably one of the most requested features is now in here, and that's the ability to be able to archive classes so that you can still save them within LabSim, but they're not taking up all the real estate on your home page. So let's say that this class that I just created earlier, I've now no longer need that class. That semester's over with. I'm done with that particular class. I can go ahead and click the box next to the class name, go up to Actions, and say I want to archive that class. It'll ask me to confirm this is the class that I do want to archive, and I can simply click Yes. And now it's updating my home page so that that class is no longer going to appear. You can see it's no longer here in my active list because the home page is the active classes, of course. But if I want to go back and review anything in there, I'll simply go over to my View button and go to my archived classes. Now this gives me the ability, the archived is in red, so you know you're on a different page, but this gives me the ability to see the different classes that I've archived, and you'll notice that the report data for how the students did it throughout the course is associated here, so I can go back to any class and view the reports by going to the archived view. So it saves all the report data for the class, but when I'm in my active class view, then this helps to keep the home page for me much cleaner. And then on the student side, when they go to enroll in a class, they get to enroll now by their respective instructor. So they get to pick the instructor name first, and then they get to see the instructor's classes. Well, they're only going to see the classes that are on the active or the home page. So they don't have to wade through classes that are no longer relevant as well. So this makes it a more clean structure for both instructors and students alike. Now, the important thing that instructors always wanted to know about, of course, were reports. What reports, do I have available? Well, nothing really has changed there. We just have a slightly different view, and there definitely are some nice features that we've included in here as enhancements that will make these easier to utilize. So all the reports are in one simple location now. There's not multiple places to have to go. The gradebook report is the most commonly used one, so of course it's the one that's on top, and I can click Run across from that. And it gives me the ability, of course, to see how the students are doing in this particular class. As in the past, it's defaulting to showing you the exams and the lab scores, but you'll notice that all the options are now right at the top of the report. In LabSim 4, you had an options page, and then you had to build a report based on those options. Well, now everything is combined together. So if I say, you know what, I just want to see the lab scores, and I deselect the exam box, it's going to automatically refresh that data for me, and now the page is showing me the information that applies only to labs. So the nice thing is you don't have to select options and build a report. It all is combined together. The new feature that we've added in here, again, popular request, is that in the sections, instructors said, well, what if I just want to see work done in chapter 1? I'm not interested in all the other chapters right now. I just want that concise information. Well, now you can filter off of that specifically. So now you have the ability to look at just a particular chapter. Let's say maybe I want to see the exam scores now as well as the lab scores in this chapter. Well, when I click that, again, it will auto-refresh the data for me. If I mouse over or hover over the actual number itself, it'll tell me what the topic of that particular lab, or, of course, if it was an exam, what that exam was. So again, all the options are up here. If you did by chance use the export feature, we know that some instructors like to keep an Excel spreadsheet of the grades, for instance. We still have that export functionality here. At the top, you can click the download little icon here, right next to the X, and then that will allow you to save the file as, of course, a CSV file. The other report that I just briefly want to touch on here is the individual scores report. In the past, you had to actually pick parameters for this, but this is automatically going to run again, and it's based off of the first alphabetically listed student on my list. So I can go, of course, to my name drop-down box up here and say I want to look at Jimmy's information, and then I can say, yeah, and I also want to see how much time he's spending on the text lessons and watching the videos. So this data is basically the same with one addition. We now have a time stamp as well as the date stamp. That was another item that was requested that we've added in on this new interface. And just as always, the students have this exact same detail that they can look up in their reports as well. All right, you guys are kind of a quiet bunch. I had lots more questions yesterday. So again, if anybody does have questions, feel free to go ahead and type those in the questions box. I'm happy to address those, but maybe I'm already answering your questions, which is great. All right, so I'm going to go back to my home page here. And the one other feature that we've definitely had lots of requests for was in custom exams. Instructors said, well, I would like to be able to add my own questions and answers. So we now give you the ability to be able to do so. Here I have an item bank where I can create my own questions. Okay, and it looks like I do have a couple questions popping in here. Great. So let's see. All right, somebody's just noting that they've been working in the new LabSim for a while, so this is a good refresher. Thank you for that, Jimmy. And question, Jeremy, good question. Are there any plans to allow export of class data to formats other than a CSV? At this point in time, the answer is no, because basically the CSV is just kind of the common file that allows you to import it multiple locations after it's been exported out. All right, and then another question. Brian, is there a report to see how many minutes of a video that a student watched? For example, 3 out of 4. You know, that's great feedback, and we don't have that currently. I do hope that that's something that we'll be able to put an enhancement into, where you can see that the student, for instance, spent, like you said, the video was maybe 4 minutes long, and they spent 3 minutes out of that, so that you can see how much time they spent based on what the total time of the video was. Great feedback, and if that's not already been turned in as an enhancement request, I'll certainly turn that in as well. So thank you for that question. All right, that looks like the end of the questions for right now, but again, go ahead and feel free to type those in any point in time as they arise. In the custom exams, I mentioned that you can now create your own item bank of questions. Right now, you can, of course, add your own pool. You can see I've added multiple pools of questions here as I've been playing around with this. But initially, you have to click Add to generate a pool of questions. And I can just title this whatever I like. And initially, I have to save the pool title, and then it's going to allow me, once that's saved, I can go in and click on that title. And then it will allow me to go out and create questions for this respective pool of questions. Now, currently, there are 2 different types of questions you can use. You can add a multiple choice type question, which is going to have multiple answer, obviously, that are correct, or, of course, a single choice question. Now, yesterday, I'm going to already address questions that were asked yesterday because I think these are very vital. Right now, there is not a way to import questions and answers into here. If you happen to have a bank of questions you have somewhere else, you can certainly copy and paste questions and answers in. That's availability that you can do, but there's not a way to import. Also, I had questions as far as, am I able to bring in an image that I could reference for a question? The answer to that right now is no. So these are strictly single choice, multiple choice questions where then I can, of course, identify what the correct answer. Obviously, a single choice only has one correct answer. If I had selected a multiple choice, I could then select, of course, multiple boxes. I have the ability to add more answer options in or remove some if I like. So if I only wanted 3 responses here, I can go ahead and remove one of those boxes. The X also does the same thing, takes away one of the answer boxes here. Now I can save this question. And this shows me now that I have a single choice question, and right here, of course I only typed the word question in, but the question would appear here until it truncates at the end. But the question that you've entered will appear right there so that you can see. Now, the nice thing is you can do this, a little at a time. You don't have to come out and create 50 questions all at once. You can do 1 or 2, 5 or 10. When you're done, click Save. It'll save that pool of questions that you currently have on the home page here, on the custom home item bank homepage, that is. It shows that I have 1 question right now in this sample pool that I just created. And of course I can go back anytime, as I mentioned, and add those questions in. Now, a lot of you obviously in the past have used our custom exams where you've used the questions from our test, and maybe that's still what you prefer because you don't want to have to maybe take the additional time to create your own. That's just fine, and that option obviously still exists here. So if I've created my own item bank, that's great. If not, that's fine too. But anytime I'm ready to actually create the actual test, then I will click Add. And from here, this first page is the same as what you're used to. I can see what the exam name is. I can, of course, title that whatever I like, put in my passing score, how much time I want, and then change the review options if I like. The questions is just slightly rearranged here. So now, of course, the first thing I need to do is pick the course that I want to select questions from. And in the past, if you've used this feature, it works basically the same. As I click on a topic, it will load questions that I can use for that respective topic. And the labs are much easier to see because they have a bright header associated with them versus the regular multiple choice questions. Now, right underneath the question, you'll notice that there's a plus sign that I can add in that particular question. Or at the top under Actions, I can say, you know what, I want to add all the questions from that topic. And then at the top, of course, it's keeping the tally. Right now, if you've used this feature before, you know that it's supposed to be showing me in parentheses how many questions that I've selected from this topic. That's one thing that they're working on. For some reason, in a recent update we did, that got dropped off, so they are working to get that back on, just so you're aware. Now, when I've added in all the questions that I want from here, let's say maybe now I want to go and add some of my own questions that I created. Well, I can go back up to the drop-down option here, and at the very bottom is where the custom item bank is stored. So when I click on that, it now shows me the various pools of questions that I've created, and I can go ahead and click on the pool that I want to add questions from. And of course, I can just click the plus sign or always go up to the Actions and say Add All. We have the review, which basically does. We did have 4 tabs up here before. We streamlined this because there wasn't really a need. Some instructors said, well, I don't necessarily need to review my test. So we have everything now to finalize it on one screen here, or one page, where now you can recap the detail. If you do want to go back and review the questions, you can simply click View Questions. And here this brings up the same screen like you've seen before, where you can go through each of the individual questions. If you decide there's a question in here you don't want, here's the Remove button. And then you can click, of course, Done on this window. Once you've checked everything, you have the ability to print the exam as well as an answer key if needed. Some instructors have noted that they need a printed copy. And then when you press Done, it saves that exam for me, and this part is slightly different, so I want to review that. Before, when you went out to the custom exams, it showed each of your classes, and then correspondingly under those classes it showed the exams. Well, that got pretty lengthy very quickly, so we've flip-flopped that basically now so that you are only seeing the custom exams, and then when I go to schedule, one of those exams, that's when I get to see the classes that are applicable for that test. And so here I can see there's, in this case, only one class that I can schedule, and that again is based off of the product association that I did when I created the class. But here I can select that class, and it's now going to, these screens are going to look similar. It's now going to pull up my class roster for me so that I can schedule. And just like you could previously, if you want to schedule 1 or 2 students, you can do that. Or if you need to schedule the whole class, of course, you can do that with one click as well. So you have both options still available. And by the way, while we're doing this, I just want to also explain that same thing with certification exams. In the pro exams, you scheduled those the same way that you did the custom exams, and that is no different as well. So the review that I'm doing here for the scheduling process is the same for custom exams as it would be for pro certification scheduling. So here again, if I want, I can just pick a couple students on the list, or I can select all of them at once by clicking the name box. Then right above the name box, I'll click Schedule. And this window is no different. Here I can go out, and again, this is just the time that the test will be available for students to begin the exam. Not where it says end. It's not when they have to end the test. It's simply the time that they can log, the last time that they can log in. So let me give an example here. I'm going to say I'm a teacher in a classroom. I have a 10 o'clock class, so I'm going to give students a 15-minute window to get to class. So students that are on time will have the ability to start the test right at 10 o'clock. And of course, anybody else can start between 10 and up to 10:15, and they'll have the full course hour that's designated on this exam to complete it. Now, if somebody comes into the classroom at 10:20, of course, they will not be able to access the test unless you go back out and reschedule it for them because they're past that opportunity window. Still have the option to use a password if you like. It's not required, of course, but optional. And then when I press done, I get to see on this first window that the students are scheduled. Notice it's defaulting here to show that they'll have one attempt to do the exam, and then they can, of course, start when the start date and time arrive. And by clicking done here, that saves that schedule to allow the students to be able to see the test is coming up. They just won't be able to, of course, access it until the date and time arrive. Again, that's no different than what it's been in the past. Now, under the Actions drop-down, I just wanted to show some other features here. We can schedule the exam. We can preview the exam. A new feature that's coming up that will be available, matter of fact, I think that's even available now, is that you can create, or you can copy, exams created by other instructors that will allow you to edit those exams. So for instance, if I go out to the teacher button right here and say I want to look at Ken's exams, for instance, well, it's going to now pull up his test for me. Well, let's say that I want to use his Client Pro quiz right here. Well, I can go out and go to Actions and say I want to copy that exam, and it just is telling me here it's going to name the exam this, and of course I can change that name if I like, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep that name and say copy. And now the thing you got to remember is I'm currently in Ken's account because I selected him as an instructor. So now I have to go back to my exams in order to be able to see that test that I just copied. And right here on top is the copy of that Client Pro quiz. And now, of course, I can click on that and have the same screens that we just reviewed to go back to the questions, see what, of course, if I want to review the questions immediately, I can just go to review and view what those questions are. I can see those questions, and then of course use this to scroll through those, remove any questions that I want, and of course go back to the questions tab and maybe add in any additional questions that I like. So another feature that's been requested that we now have available to utilize is where you can go in, pick a different instructor, look at their exams, pick a test that you can copy, and then it allows you to edit that test without, of course, changing anything on the test that was originally authored. And then, of course, when it's in your account, you can go out and you can schedule that exam. You also can delete exams. The only warning I want to give there is if you do delete an exam that students have already taken, it will delete everything, including the report data. So just make sure if you really do want, maybe you're just out playing around with the system and you just want to delete an exam. That's fine, not a problem. But just as a, like I said, a quick warning, make sure that you're not deleting exams that have report data with them, because it will also delete that reports along with it, unless you, of course, already have that information perhaps exported out. Now, the view reports, I do want to show that there's not really a lot of difference here, just a structural difference. I can pick the class now that I want to view the reports for on this particular test. And the same three tabs exist here. The schedule tab, where I can see when they took it and what the status was, if they passed or failed. Of course, the status is only there if you did provide a percentage. The individual scores shows, of course, what their actual score was, and then the details link right here will allow me to go out and look and see exactly what questions that particular student missed. So anything here that says incorrect, I can simply click the incorrect. It will expand the question. I can see what the question was, what the correct answer should have been, and then the answer that's crossed out is the answer that the student gave. So it's easy to identify the correct versus the incorrect answer, and I can, of course, do this for any question. If there's a lab question, I want to make this point a little clear, is that there's either a red little bar here or there's going to be a green bar. The green bar would indicate that everything was completed correctly, no task was left undone. A red bar doesn't mean that everything was wrong. A red bar simply means something was missed. So now if I view this student's lab report, I can go down through here and I can see that, well, the student actually only missed one task. Well, they did get credit for everything that they got correct. They just didn't get the full credit. And it looks like somebody's asking, is there any possibility of adding an expand all button for the exam reports? And I'm assuming that you're referring, Jeremy, I'm assuming that you're referring to this right now. Okay, so that to, like, when I was just in the details here, so that I'm thinking what you're saying is expand all here so that you don't have to click on each one of these individually. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. That's a great suggestion. There's not an option right now to do that, but again, that's an enhancement that I will get turned in if that one hasn't already been suggested. So thank you for that. Now, the last option here, the class performance, I actually really like how this one's been restructured. So if I click on that, before we really had the same detail here, but I think it was a little bit harder to see. The way they've restructured this makes it really very clear that question 4 was the one that the majority of the class struggled with. So here, if I click on question 4, I can see what the question was and what the correct answer was. Now, I don't know what the most common answer was that the students gave, but I can definitely see what the weak point was with the questions in the class. And then, of course, I can see the next lowest question happened to be this question. So I can go out and, of course, look at those. And then if I'm, of course, doing this, maybe you're doing a test at the beginning of class and you still have time to do a review afterward. This is a great report to go to see the areas that the students are weak in. All right. Well, we've definitely, I think this was scheduled for a half hour, and I've really tried to keep everything to a minimum, but there's just been so much that I wanted to show to you today, so I appreciate your time. The other thing that I do want to make sure that you're aware of is from our welcome drop down at the top right here, we have some other options where you can go to resources. These resources we've had previously, but they were posted on our website, and we found that sometimes instructors didn't realize that we even had them. So we have lesson plans, course outlines, mappings to some textbooks, and some additional tutorials to help out. These are available right from the resources. This will open up a brand new page to utilize, and so you can just, of course, go out and look at any of these and go right back into LabSim. Brian's asking a question. If a student forgets their password before they join a class, can we still send the reset password email to them? Yes, actually you can. That's a great question. So let me show that. If the student's not in the class, because we talked about clicking the class name to see the students that are there. Well, let's say a student hasn't enrolled in the class yet, but they're within the school. So here in the My Students tab, I can click here. If I want, I can, of course, now this is going to show me, just so you're aware, this is showing me not a big long list. We've tried to reduce the time that this list posts. So what we've done is done them now in pages. So as you can see, there's a total of 190 results here, 190 students that are taking up 4 different pages. But the easiest way to find a specific student is simply to type their name in and click the search option. Right here, that student comes up. I can click that student's name, and then from here is where I can generate that temporary password. So even if the student forgot to enroll in the class, you can still go out and set up a temporary password for them. So thank you for that question, Brian. And at this point, I'm done with the presentation. So are there any other questions before I close today? And again, for anybody who may have joined us late, let me just post my contact information one more time. You're welcome to call, of course, or email if you do need anything additional. Hopefully this session brought you up to speed on where everything's located and the new enhanced features that we have. There's a lot of them out there, and we're going to continue to add more of those. So thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.